Hello everybody! Hello into the ZanZanA live stream interview. I have the pleasure tonight to have with me Pedro Paixão from Moonspell. Hi Pedro.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Fine, thank you. And you?
I'm fine, yeah. Good weather in Portugal, always.
Good weather in Tunisia also.
yeah, true.
Yeah, so it's a very, very big pleasure having you with us, Pedro.
My pleasure.
Moonspell is on the playlist of ZanZanA, a previous radio show from 20 years now, and every time there was Moonspell, I don't say it was every once a week, but it was good in the playlist, so it's a very big pleasure to have you here. I remember that the actuality of Moonspell is this, the new album, Hermitage. Yeah. So, Pedro, 13th album and nearly 13 years of Moonspell. That's a long journey.
Nearly 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, 30, yeah.
Yeah, 30. 13 album, but 30 years.
30 and 13th album.
Yeah.
Studio album, yeah.
Yeah, it's a long journey, but it's a good journey. When I speak by myself, I never thought I would be in this position because it wasn't in my plans at all to be a musician or to have a band. It just happened. And but when it happened, I knew that it was an opportunity that one should not waste. And I think I didn't. And I think I didn't because we've been, very productive. It has been a fantastic journey. I had the opportunity, we all had the opportunity to meet great people on the road. And I'm very proud to be in the metal scene as well, because the metal scene, on the opposite of a lot of people might think, is actually quite peaceful and quite healthy. And it's there's a lot of strong structures like festivals and happenings and events, and then radios like yours supporting this genre. And I feel honored to be here still after 30 years, and still with a lot of motivation for the future. And that's, I think, the most important, right?
Yeah. After 30 years, do you have the same, I don't want to say the same motivation, but I think making a new album, it's more difficult than making the first, the second, the third, the 10th.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know more, you know what to expect, you know how the process goes, you know what you have to be more careful with, but it is more difficult to be more creative, because when in the beginning you think everything is quite interesting. Anything you do, you just drop your hands on some notes and oh interesting, and you get immediately enthusiastic about it. And then I think, like any man with a woman, after a while you start to have to be a bit more creative. And nowadays we have to push us way further than we did in the first albums, like Wolfart or Religious. It was easier to write songs. Nowadays, you have to be a bit more sophisticated because, after these many years, we are not a band that repeats itself. So I think we developed a lot, but the songwriting is harder. The recording process is easier, I think, because we're more used to it. We prepare ourselves better. So, like in everything, there's the ups and there's the downs. That's like anything else, basically.
Yeah, that's what explains that you made 3 years, I think, for conceiving the album, writing it before recording it.
Yeah, there was this special occasion, we almost recorded this album in the end of 2019.
Okay.
But we thought that the songs, we also got a tour at like last hour tour on that winter of 2019, and by touring we could listen better the songs what we did, and we weren't happy at all with the results, and so we didn't go to studio, and we decided to rework the songs completely. So I think we delayed the album 1 year, and that was a good move because I think the songs obviously sound way better than they did on the demo in 2019. So I mean, we could have released this album in February 1 year ago, but the album I think wouldn't be half as good as it is now, at least for our taste.
Yeah. What the importance of the recording process, the studio? Because you went to UK to record the album. Why the choose of Jaime Gomez Arellano?
Well, there was a tip from a friend of ours. We have a friend, he's the Moonspell biography writer, and he's very familiar and has a lot of knowledge in the music scene and the new trends and new ideas that show up. And he recommended us to check on this guy, and we did, and we loved his work. And we thought, yeah, I think our friend is totally right about this suggestion, and so we chose him. And I remember in the summer of 2020, in the beginning, I think July, maybe middle summer, he called me up so that we would talk a bit, and we clicked immediately. And nowadays we're all great friends with Gomez, and he did a brilliant job. I think I really like this production. I don't know if it's a musician thing, because I always complained a bit that our albums sounded a bit too produced and didn't sound like a band. It sounded like a record, and we wanted to sound like a band. And I think Gomez is the perfect person for it, because he's totally into organic sound and real sound. And so when you listen to our album, I think people really can relate to a band, how a band should sound, and you can clearly listen what's the drums playing, what are the guitars playing. There's not like tons and tons of layers. It's not a big production in this aspect. It's not too orchestral, but on the other hand, it shows off a lot more emotions, because you can really feel there are 5 people playing the instruments. And that was, I think, a great move. To be in England or to be anywhere else, actually, Gomez wants to move to Portugal now, so it doesn't matter where the studio is, because what counts more is a mix between the equipment he has, but especially the person. The person is 70% of the sound. So I mean, we just went for Gomez, not for the UK, but we had to go to the UK. It was quite pleasant anyway.
Yeah. Madonna lives in Portugal, so that's it. I have a question from Mohamed Kileni. He hasn't heard a single song of Hermitage yet. Mohamed, that's not good. You got 3 clips, 2 clips of the new album, and Friday will be
the release date.
The album, the release date. So the question, I'm really looking forward to it. I love the previous album, 1755. How do you describe it compared to previous release? Hermitage previous compared to previous album.
Yeah. I mean, we always say in Moonspell that 1755 is a bit an outsider, compared to the other albums, because it's very specific. It's very monochromatic. It's about an event, it's sung in Portuguese. And the music relates totally to the place, Portugal, and to the era of 1755. The choice of scales, of music texture, and all this comes to a very specific project. I love it. I think it's a great album. And we also decided to have only like more brutal vocals, more riffing, because there was a lot of destruction going on, and we wanted to reflect the feeling and the atmosphere of that times and place. And that was something unique. So we kind of consider that album a bit of an outsider compared to the others. Hermitage is coming back a bit to where we left Extinct, the album before 1755. So I think this is an album that follows more the path of Moonspell and how our career should go. I mean, 1755 was a bit of an exception, let's say this way. So these are completely different albums that just by a coincidence happen to be sequenced in our time frame.
Yeah. I had the privilege to listen to this album, Heritage. Congratulations. Very, very good album. It pleased me a lot. I think that there's something about this album. It's a question of space. There's a lot of space for music. It's not condensed. It's
exactly.
It's not atmospheric, but we hear that. Is it something like maturity?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of these answers that I think your question said everything. And I already mentioned on this interview that we really wanted to sound as a band, as 5 persons, and not as full arrangements or really orchestral or going nuts with anything. No, we didn't push us too hard. I mean, we push us hard in songwriting, but not everything was very emotional and very honest. Everything comes from the heart, and I think that's why a lot of people say about this album that they can feel us in their room, in their living room, in their bedroom, because they can really almost see us playing the instruments. And I think that's, as you said, I think your description was perfect, because obviously there is a lot more space in between in a lot of moments. And that was something we also worked a lot on, was the dynamics of the music, to have really this, not to be dense all the time. You need some density, but on the right spots, on the right moments. All these developments and progressions that we do until a certain climax can only work if you start or have moments with a lot of space in between the instruments, and start to fill in pieces, and then at the end it becomes a massive feeling of always over the same theme, which is also marks a difference on this album, that we worked a lot more about one theme in each song than having different parts in the same song. We just developed the same part over and over. We always transformed and modulated it. I think it was more musical. Obviously.
Yeah. So there's from Algeria, Yassine Rey. Hello, Karim. Hello, Pedro. Fans like Moonspells from Algeria, and they were okay to come. Thank you, Yassine. There's a question by Mohamed Kileni. How do you decide on what an album is going to be about? Very interesting question, Mohamed, because I said there's a lot of reflection, I think, in this album. You are 3 to compose in Moonspell. It's not only 1 or 3 people. There's I think you. There's Fernando. There's Ricardo.
I mean, songwriting. I do it with Ricardo. Yeah.
Yeah.
do it, but of course the other guys have Iris, the bass player, and Hugo, the new drummer. They have a good role on this album too, because we like to gather the individuals. We don't like to just have one person's personality in the outcome. We like to have this gather and this mixture.
Yeah, but I return to the question. It's
exactly.
How do you decide what this album? How did you decide that what Hermitage was going to be, and especially all this maturity and all this musicality?
Yeah, the thing is, when the concepts or the basis, the working basis is always one day Fernando comes in the room and says, "Okay, guys, I think I know what I want to write about. I want to write about Hermitage." And we always make funny face like, "What the hell?" And then he explains his starting point. Then throughout the songwriting, we also change a bit. It's like the concept is the owner of the music, and then the music starts to take over the concept as well. And I think it's this interaction that comes or brings the light to the album. The maturity, I think it's a natural thing. It also has to do with the relation within the band, because you're older. We're just too old to do things that we don't like, and we're too old to pretend something. So I think the maturity comes along with honesty and also not be afraid to be more self-confident about your musical decisions and tastes. And I think that's what especially me and Ricardo did at a certain point on this year, that on 2020, that we decided to remake the whole songs, and then we sat down like two young kids. As we were listening to music, we were doing it, and then listen to it, and having the most spontaneous attitude towards the music, development. And that's, I think, the maturity it's weird, because it is a more mature album. Yeah, we always say that. We also, I think, we had a more mature attitude, but in fact, when we were writing the songs, what we did, our maturity told us to come on, don't think about the end of the song, don't think about the whole song as you want it to come out, just follow your instincts every second, and so the songs are not built like, okay, we did a song and now let's check the weak parts. No, the song was done from beginning to end, as your heart would say, and we would stop it and say, no, this is not really giving me the creeps. Let's restart from here. Let's see where can we take this, so it is more musical, it is more mature, but I think we ended up being more spontaneous about it, as well. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. It's the next interview. I have another interview, but
okay, yeah. Sorry. Hey Pedro, looking forward to listen to the new album, Karim. Nice shirt, by the way. Thank you. It's a Tunisian changing of Opeth.
Oh man, very insisting. I'm gonna just warn them. Hey, take it easy.
Yeah.
But go on.
Okay, having been in bands, I can say that egos conflicts is a problem. Do you guys face the same problem? And if so, how do you get over them? As question of Mohammed. There's another question that I want to ask you even. Hermitage, there's a big place for guitar,
Yes.
We hear the sound of guitar, we hear riffs, we hear arpeggio. So, Pedro, you're a keyboard player. And how do you feel the place how did you how did you get into the song, you know, with the keyboards? Because when we hear this album, the guitar is wow.
Yeah, well, it's a more outstanding feature. I think the drums is also quite nice in
Yeah.
some moments. You know, this Ricardo is a great musician, and we just take advantage of it. And the trick, I think, the trick with the keyboards is, you know, a lot of times we write songs in keyboards and then we get to the guitars. Also happens the opposite, and fortunately, both me and Ricardo, we can play the other instruments, and he writes a lot of stuff on keyboards. I write a lot of stuff on guitars. You know, so it's funny, but that sometimes people think that, oh, Ricardo, that great guitar line you created is so great, and actually I did it, and then they say the same about the keyboards on a certain song, and I know, and I tell them, yeah, but that was Ricardo's idea, and he was writing it, and you know, then of course I will change the keyboards he made, and he will change the guitar I did. And I think he's a great guitar player. I love his feeling, and I think we this time we really found the sweet spot for Ricardo, because he's very expressive in his way of playing, and this album is full of moments where you can feel every note, and he's really, really good doing it. And that was something. Again, it's an interaction between the five Moonspell. You know, we maybe some maturity as well. We start to know what we are really good at and what we're not so good at. And I know what I'm not good at, and I'm not good with fast keyboards. So I work a lot more on atmospheric parts and melodies, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, I always say that I don't mind if I have to paint if I have to do a painting and I only have 3 colors. Yeah, then you have to be creative with the 3 colors. When you have all the colors in the world to paint it, you're not so creative. So limitations and you know, incompetences, you know, somehow they're also a kind of engine and an ignition for your creativity, because a lot of times strange sounds that you do with guitars or with any other instruments, there are kind of a feature that characterized that musician, but it came out from a mistake because he couldn't play rightly the things, and we know tons of stories like this. So I actually consider the weak points of musicians sometimes their main characteristic and the good characteristic about them.
Yeah. Can we still, with after Hermitage, say that there's a Moonspell signature sound? Isn't it changed?
Yeah, we can, but you know, on Hermitage, because of Gomez, our producer, I had to search a lot more for vintage keyboard sounds, and I found out that a lot of the vintage keyboards have the sounds that I wanted like 10 years ago, and I just didn't know where to look for. So I think there is a signature sound. It's just improving. It's getting more classier and more defined. Now that I know the root, the origin of these sounds, I was always thinking it becomes more easy to mark this signature, to have it more deeply in our music. I think Hermitage is a good example. Although we really wanted to go vintage, it ended up to be a new discovery for me, and I think for the future is going to be great. I'm going to use a lot of that sounds on old songs as well, on live performances when they come back.
Yeah. Tell me, Pedro, when you hear a lot of reviews about Hermitage album, a lot of people say, "Oh, Pink Floyd influence, Pink Floyd influence."
They're right.
But no, I don't think. Maybe for me, there's I think it's Moonspell. It's Opeth. But in some way, it's not inspired by Opeth, but the changing, you know, the evolution of the music of a band.
Yeah, true. You're totally right. The Pink Floyd thing happens on 3-4 songs or even some other moments, but I can name other 3-4 songs on the album that have almost nothing of Pink Floyd. I mean, if there is, you're not going to notice. Songs like Hermitage or Hermit Saints, these are songs that are way more influenced by Bathory than Pink Floyd. But Pink Floyd was always an influence for us. In some songs, you notice more because of this vintage attitude that we had, this maturity thing. But on other songs, Common Prayers has nothing of Pink Floyd at all. So, I mean, we had other influences, from Doors to Fields of the Nephilim, still Type O Negative. I don't know. Musical influences are all over. Pink Floyd, it is one that you can notice. Yeah, I agree. I don't mind. I'm not ashamed of it. But the album, I don't know if this album is as much Pink Floyd as, for instance, Wild Honey from Tiamat was at the time. I think this is a bit less. It just has always a little bit moments, on the solos as well. You feel more. It's the same style, not quite so much. You can't really tell so much about Pink Floyd, but that existed always. And you're right. I mean, we were always influenced, and Ricardo always loved David Gilmour. And I mean, if you listen a solo from Full Moon Madness or Everything Invaded, there is moments there where it could be a Pink Floyd solo, and these are older songs, So I think that our signature and Ricardo's signature is totally there. I don't think that the album is that much. I mean, it is pretty much in the same area, but I would tend to agree more with you. That is more on this Opeth, Catatonia, Zoan. A lot of bands that's dwell in this progressive kind of nostalgia.
Are we going to jazz like Opeth in the future?
No, we don't. We don't jazz. We don't jazz. Jazz is out of the picture now.
No, because with Opeth, no. Okay, so let's talk about Hermitage. Let's talk about Hermit. I'd like to ask you a question because you're from Portugal, I am from Tunisia, and there's some things that are nearly the same. We know that in Portugal there's Fatima, very well known,
of course,
sanctuary. But what importance have Hermit Saints in the culture of Portugal?
They're not very known. I myself have some trouble to find to name some Hermit Saints from Portugal. I'm not the right person for it. I actually had almost no Christian education at all. My family is totally atheist. Even my kids, they find more strange the Catholic celebration mass than for instance the Islamic religious behaviorment. They find it's very sinister. There's a person hanging on a cross as soon as you come in this church. But no, I couldn't say. But the thing is, I like to listen to what Fernando says about the Hermit Saints. It's very inspiring, in fact. But I couldn't name anyone, No,
but not about the names, but about the pratic. Because in North Africa and Tunisia, the Hermits are very important in the culture. There's saints like Sidi Bou Said, Sidi Mahrez, and hundreds of other. So the question, in fact, there's a culture of Sufi in the Sufi culture in Islam. In Islam, it's going to like exactly the hermits,
going to the desert, being alone, being with God. But I don't think that our Hermitage is so much about that action, that solution of isolating yourself. The thing is, the world is isolating people more and more. And nowadays with the pandemic is even worse. And I think the Hermitage is not necessarily a place. to be, but more of a mind place. It, of course, involves some introspection. And I think hermits are people that necessarily look for some kind of happiness, or at least want to run away from the frustration of modern society. And also, you can be among a big crowd and still be very isolated. So we approach very much this paradox between what we are forced to be, so to be isolated, and the necessity of true isolation, which is to make your own state of mind. So this paradox between what the world forces you to, and on the other hand, the needs that you have, are the Hermitage. And it's this conflict that we work on, So we have songs that where Fernando is screaming, "On our way to Hermitage." It doesn't really tell. Otherwise, he would have say, "On my way." He says, "On our way." That it, to me, it always I always interpret it as kind of something we are forced to. It's something we are pulled. We are being pushed to this isolation. On the other hand, Fernando sings the greater good. So it's not necessarily that you leave everything behind and that you leave everyone behind. Hermitage is indeed about this paradox of your own needs and your needs towards the next one. And the way it's working, it's something that it's really problematic. And, to explain this, the better thing is to listen to our music, because at least I'm not a writer. So it's hard for me to explain these thoughts and emotions. That's why we do music. And music is not explainable because it's a message in itself. And the way you feel it is the message. So of course, on interviews, we'll have to give a clue to people. So my answer to that is Hermitage is not a place. It's a paradox in this way. It's a bit confusing, but I am quite sure that any listener will have his own view of it. You can really feel like an urge to be isolated with this album because it is indeed very introspective. And I think that will be already very positive. But that depends on how each one of us listen to the album, because the art doesn't end when you do a song. It also contains the receiver's art. When you listen to something and you have your own interpretation of what you are listening, what you are reading, and I think that's way more interesting to look at it, because it also brings the creativity of the listener, and that's what art is for you to feel creative, even though you don't consciously feel it. You're being creative by listening to the same song as your next one, as your next fellow, and you feel it in a different way than he does or she. So I think that's the beauty of music and art in general.
First time after many, many, many interviews I've made that an artist speaks about the creativity of the listener.
Yeah, I'm a listener. As I said, one of the bases for this song writing of this album was me and Ricardo approaching the music as listeners. So you have to respect that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pedro. Okay, you might have answered this already, but just to make sure, what is the writing process, democracy or decide for all? Pedro have answered, so it's democracy. It's negotiation, maybe more than the democracy, isn't it?
There's not many fights. I mean, the only people that are allowed to fight, really, it's me and Ricardo. But we don't do it that often. So it's something, and I always like to listen to other people's ideas. If they're crazy, I tell them you're crazy. If they're good, the only thing is that you don't have to take it too personal, which is very hard on music. But me and Ricardo, we actually have really good chemistry. I can feel now again with our new drummer Hugo, it's great as well. So that's not an issue now, not nowadays anymore.
Yeah, and Emily Strange say your collaboration with Mahafsoon was very interesting. I enjoyed the combination between metal music and belly dancing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a bit too. I never liked it to see belly dancing on Vampiria, for instance, but on songs like Breathe, whenever you place the song in Middle Eastern, then I really love it. But otherwise, but I have nothing against it. But I love belly dancing, and I really we dig Mahapsun, and she was super nice. She's a beautiful woman too. So it's really nice experiences. That's what we are here for. That's the great thing about having a band is to have the chance to work with other artists, and that was a great experience, I have to say.
Okay, Pedro, last question, because you have another interview now. We heard the Skype.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you know some Tunisian bands?
Well, man, I don't know, but to say in my defense, I have to say that if you could ask me the same about, for instance, Spanish band, well, okay, Spanish band I would say, but from Colombia, and I would have to scratch my head. Oh, I think I know a band is called maybe Crucifixion. I don't know. I'm not very good in underground thing is the underground scene. The bands I get to listen, but I don't have any prejudice. Put it this way: since the early times, we heard bands from Czech Republic, from Slovenia. I don't mind where bands come from, as long as it comes to my ears. So I'm probably gonna check it, and I'm gonna challenge tomorrow Fernando, because we meet tomorrow for a rehearsal. I'm going to ask him if he knows any Tunisian bands. I'm quite sure he knows it.
Maybe you know Mirath. Maybe you know
yes.
Kartagots.
Not the same. No, not Kartagots, but Mirath. I think I heard it.
Yeah. That's it from Tunisia.
But I mean, don't take me wrong. I mean, many people don't know Moonspell as well, and a lot of people, that happens to us. That interviewers ask other bands if they know any band from Portugal, Portuguese interviewers, and they don't know. In metal, they usually know Moonspell. It comes in the books, but they cannot say a second band, for instance. And there's a lot of good bands going on. So,
yeah. Pedro, thank you very much. Remind, this album will be released on Friday. Hermitage, a very, very, very good album, I must say. Listen to it. Wassim Amara from the United States. Pedro, thank you for everything, especially Wolf Heart.
Yeah, old timer. Yeah, you're welcome.
Oops. He's the one that make me know who is Moonspell 20 years ago.
Yeah, but we still love to play old songs. I love Wolfshade, for instance, to play Wolfshade. And I still have a lot of pleasure playing Alma Mater. But, in Moonspell, people that saw us live, we always have played the classics and the old songs because we're very proud of them and still make a lot of fun to play them. We were never ashamed of our past. We like it, we respect it, and we're from the South. We're traditional.
Yeah, and I don't know what he said. We met in Pittsburgh back in 2013.
Yeah. I really like to be in Pittsburgh. Once I went there to drink a beer, and the bartender just presented so many options, and I said to her, just get me any beer. I like lighter beers. And she was like repeating and repeating because she didn't want to take the responsibility. I said, look, I'll pay for it. Even if I don't like, don't worry, come on. Americans tend to be a bit paranoid, but I love the city, Pittsburgh, and I will never forget the pub. The girl was super nice as well. and the shows went well. It's a university city. It's great. Yeah, I kind of remember very well Pittsburgh. Always like to go there.
And Mohamed Kirini told you, thank you for 1755.
You're welcome.
Okay, so for ending, I'm going to finish with All or Nothing. Wow, what a song.
What a song.
What can you tell us about it for people who didn't listen to it?
I think that it's one of the boldest songs, the riskier ones. I mean, there's a chorus without distortion guitar, but on the other hand, it's this. There was this guitar line which I had for years, and finally we worked on it. Ricardo made all these keyboard changes, and then I changed the chords, the progression, and it was so spontaneous. This is a very good example of how we wrote a lot of the songs, and this song is like 1 year old actually at the moment. So it was one of the last ones to be written, and it's so deeply emotional when Fernando got his vocals into it. When we decided to have 2 solos in a song, it's not very common. We just went with what our heart said, and not being so rational when doing the music. Then afterwards, we started to fix little problems, but mostly it was, as I said, following a timeline, and I think anyone can feel it when listening to this song.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pedro. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.